Okay. So as we wait for people to trickle in, why don't we do a few introductions in the chat? Thank you. And I'll also introduce the CWA team that's here, starting with me. I'm Felicia. I'm based out of Cleveland, and I'm a project coordinator at Cleveland Water Alliance. I've been your point of contact around Erie Hack. You've probably received several emails from me. And then I'm going to let Max introduce himself next.
Hi all, I'm Max Herzog. I'm a program manager with Cleveland Water Alliance and have been involved in Erie Hack since its inception in 2017 and really excited to work with y'all today and start coming up with some ideas for mini challenges that we can use to really focus our innovating teams this fall. With that, I'll pass it over to Laura.
Morning, everyone. I am the newest member of the Cleveland Water Alliance team. I'm our communications coordinator, and I'm excited to talk with you all today.
And I see that Jeff is in the call. So if Jeff, you also want to introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeff. I'm the postdoc working for Cleveland Water Alliance, and I'm looking forward to contribute to the challenge.
And then Brian, since you're also here.
Hi, Brian Stubbs, Cleveland Water Alliance, and welcome. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Okay, so I'll just give it like another minute or two, and we'll get started. Okay. So I'm so excited for y'all to be at our first ever mini challenge ideation session. This ideation session will be an opportunity to network and to discuss as a group water issues around Lake Erie and beyond, as well as come up with some targeted solutions that may inspire your organization to submit a mini challenge. Before we get into it, I want to just go over this agenda, starting with a review of Erie Hack. I know you all know what Erie Hack is, but I just got to do my due diligence here. And then we'll go over challenges as well as past examples from 2019, past mini challenge examples from 2019 Erie Hack. And then we'll do a few breakouts to discuss some of Lake Erie's issues, have a recap, and we'll go into the actual creation of mini challenges. Okay, so let's just get started with the Erie Hack review. Erie Hack is a water innovation competition brought to you by Cleveland Water Alliance, a water technology innovation cluster based in Northeast Ohio. And we're the ones that coordinate the program regionally. Overall, CWA's work is focused on the idea that we can drive our economy by valuing, protecting, and leveraging our natural resources. And to this end, we partner with key stewardship organizations, including yourselves, and as well as research institutions, utilities, and water-enabled industries to drive the growth of a robust ecosystem for water technology innovation, which is where Erie Hack comes in. And ever since our first Erie Hack in 2017 and the iteration in 2019, our vision has always been to bring together teams of creatives, coders, engineers, water experts, entrepreneurs, and anyone who cares about the lake to create tech solutions to some of Lake Erie's most pressing issues. And we see it as putting our region's technical talent to work for our most precious natural resource. And it's an opportunity to spur creative new tech solutions, to forge new connections, and to start building out a water tech ecosystem across the Lake Erie Basin. And it truly is a regional effort. Erie Hack efforts in each of these focus cities are driven forward by local teams of anchor institutions in both academic and entrepreneurial spaces. And in the past, we've had events in all those cities in the US and Canada. And this year will be virtual, as everything else has been. But it's really been an opportunity for us because typically teams are created within each focus city. But with the virtual environment, People will be able to work across region and to gain new perspectives on Lake Erie's challenges. And this is also why I'm so excited to have this ideation session that brings together unique perspectives on Lake Erie. So now let's go through the challenges. These challenges were derived from a series of ideation sessions or creative idea generation sessions, which were facilitated by Cleveland Water Alliance and the NASA Glenn Research Center. And in 2019, we had 7 challenge statements, and those challenge statements were created to provide inspiration and direction for participating innovators, especially around Lake Erie's most pressing problems. This year, we are broadening the statements to 3 key focus areas. The first challenge focuses on community water resources. Lake Erie and its watersheds represent an invaluable natural resource. However, that value is not often felt to its fullest extent across Lake Erie communities. Public awareness of Lake Erie's role in supporting economic and social life across the region is low, which leads to neglect and pollution. Additionally, racial and economic disparities mean that affordability and environmental justice issues can prevent our most vulnerable communities from benefiting the presence of our Great Lake. And because water is life, we want to make sure it benefits everyone. For this challenge, teams are tasked to create solutions that cultivate awareness of the value of water, meaningful water data, equitable access, water access, and/or community resilience. So an example of a mini challenge under this includes the Water Equity Champion application. And I'll let y'all have a second to read through that. But essentially, we framed it so that we have the problem, which is from water affordability to environmental justice. Lake Erie communities suffer from a range of equity-based water challenges. However, many community members aren't aware of these challenges or the local tools they use to combat them and advocate for change. And the challenge here, the specific task, is to create a mobile tablet application or handheld device that empowers neighborhood level water equity champions to communicate the scope of local water issues, systems, and resources to residents. Further, the output should be able to assist residents in easily registering for relevant water affordability programs and accessing water data. So the sponsor organizations here were Cleveland Water Alliance, us, Cleveland Water, and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. And we had dedicated mentors as well, our own Max Herzog and Rahul Mitra of Wayne State University. And they were able to provide 2 to 3 mentors to work on this challenge, or they were able to mentor 2 to 3 teams that wanted to work on this challenge. Another example is the seasonal water usage analysis mini challenge. And this one was around water usage patterns differing from season to season. For example, one month there may be a spike of 300% during the transition from spring to summer, but seasonal variations look very different across the world, may not always apply. And so it may be more fruitful to analyze water usage as a function of temperature, humidity, monthly precipitation, et cetera. And so this challenge asks to leverage technical tools to explain or quantify how weather variables contribute to local water usage patterns. And the question they asked was, can water usage be normalized to hide weather effects so that patterns and anomalies could be more easily identifiable? The sponsor organization here was Valor Water. Those are their dedicated mentors, and they were able to attach a prize of $3,000 for this mini challenge. And as you will see, not all mini challenges had prizes, and but some of them did, depending on who sponsored the mini challenge. Okay, so next we will cover the surface water quality challenge. Lake Erie and its watersheds are more significantly impacted by human activity than any other Great Lake. And these impacts are fueled by a mix of longstanding challenges like agriculture-driven harmful algal blooms and industry-driven heavy metal pollution, as well as emerging contaminants such as microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and PFAS. Lake Erie is a great lake. Let's keep it this way. And this solution task with the creation is participants are tasked to create software, hardware solutions that deal with surface water quality, including HABs and microplastics and et cetera. So some examples of mini challenges for this one was the reduce or reuse plastic waste mini challenge. And the problem for this mini challenge is that in a relatively short period of time, plastic has become the most common form of pollution found in the Great Lakes. Almost 80% of trash found on beach cleanups in the region in recent years has been identified as plastic. This is especially evident along the southern beaches of Lake Erie, where high population and industrial development have contributed to the plastics problem. And so this challenge requests that you develop a device, method, or process that help keep plastic pollution off area beaches, or better picks up or disposes of plastic debris, or utilizes existing plastic debris for other purposes. And this was sponsored by the Ohio State University and Ohio Sea Grant. The next mini challenge example for this challenge is the Citizen Science for Nutrient Policy mini challenge. So this one had to do with the fact that near real-time data on in-water algal toxin concentrations are critical to supporting management decisions for ensuring the safety of drinking and recreational water. So there was this autonomous robotic instrument called the Environmental Sample Processor, or ESP, that can generate crucial information. But the data processing workflow includes inefficient human-assisted image analysis. So this challenge requests the creation of a fully automated image analysis protocol for the reliable and accurate processing of ESP-generated images, with data output used to calculate in-water toxin concentrations. And there is extra consideration for solutions that built a quality assurance or quality control component into the analysis, which allowed for the establishment of tolerance limits for data acceptance or rejection. And NOAA sponsored this mini challenge and was able to contribute $2,500, a $2,500 prize. And they were also, so this one is a little unique because their mentorship capacity, they stated that they were able to mentor one team that wanted to work on this challenge. So next we'll cover the water and wastewater infrastructure challenge. So Lake Erie cities are old. Their water infrastructure is no different. And in many cases, drinking and combined storm/wastewater pipes have been left undisturbed since they were first installed over a century ago. Pipe failure and capacity challenges result in water leakage and combined sewer overflow, issues already made worse by increasingly frequent and extreme storms driven by climate change. Lake Erie infrastructure is in need of an upgrade. And this challenge requests the development of software, hardware, and just any solution that deals with wastewater infrastructure, combined sewer overflow, and all that. Okay, so many challenges in this included the stormwater mapping tool. So the problem here is that stormwater management is a key area of work for local and regional officials across Lake Erie's watersheds. But this work is not always supported by advanced technologies and often misunderstood by residents. And so the challenge here is to create a mapping application that visualizes stormwater infrastructure and flow for regulated areas of Erie and Niagara counties, with the goal of developing management tools to municipal officials and increasing public awareness of human impacts on water quality. And finally, the last mini challenge example in this challenge, as well as in general, is the climate resilient water infrastructure application challenge. The problem here states that as global climate change accelerates, increasingly unpredictable and intense storm events more frequently overwhelm the capacity of conventional stormwater infrastructure and drive infrastructure degradation. One method of addressing this issue is with green infrastructure, and the task is to create a mobile application related to solutions that mitigate the impact of changing climate on urban stormwater infrastructure. The tool would provide means to incorporate recent precipitation data into green stormwater infrastructure design projects, compute the benefits/costs of green stormwater infrastructure, and or provide rapid access to relevant data sets and models that help with the siting of green stormwater infrastructure. And this was sponsored by P3 Great Lakes and there was also a prize attached to this one. So those were some examples. Those are our mini challenges. Those are our challenges and some examples of mini challenges. So next, what we're going to do is go into a breakout to discuss some of Lake Erie's most pressing problems, and that will be our source of inspiration as we create mini challenges. So Laura, if you want to go ahead and put us into breakouts.
Sounds good. I'm going to pause the
Welcome back to the main room all. We'll get started in just a second once the last group joins us.
Okay, yeah, I'll just wait till like another second or two. I think we were at 1819, right? Last time. Okay. So I'd love to, how many breakout rooms were there? 3, I believe. Yeah, so I'd love to hear what was discussed in each breakout room if breakout room 1 wants to go first.
I'm not sure if I was number 1. I did not see the number. Were you number 1, Laura, or was that me?
Your group is number 1, Max.
Okay, I can share out for our group. We had a great group of folks based across the Lake Erie region and across the country, and a number of different issues came up, including maintenance of green infrastructure, lead line and other service material line inventories for buried distribution pipes for drinking water, thinking about what kinds of information we might need to get towards prediction of line breaks and other challenges within drinking water distribution systems, how free or discounted water might be made available to low-income folks, specifically to support them in maintaining trees and other potentially green infrastructure in their neighborhoods, addressing renter versus tenant challenges with water affordability, the fact that a lot of affordability programs can't be extended to renters currently, plastic pollution and specifically microplastics in drinking water, a general interest in figuring out how to have more robust collaboration with indigenous peoples across the Great Lakes region, and then an interest in not just addressing combined sewer overflows, but also relating them to kind of more visible issues of flooding. So it was a whole host of issues. We had kind of a Detroit, Southeast Michigan focus in our group, but we also had some Cleveland folks, some folks from the East Coast. It was a real interesting discussion.
Thanks, Max. And then we'll do group 2, which I think was me, but Jim, if you want to hop in and summarize for us.
Oh, okay. So we had we also had a really nice cross section. I think 2 things arose from our group. The first was a global theme that seemed like it resonated, that Joanna got started for us, and I backed it up. The idea of trying to create emotional and intellectual connections to Lake Erie, particularly among, well, in our interest in youth, Joanna, amongst the general populace. We both want people to care about where they live and about their resources. So that was a very broad sentiment that I think many of us shared, but for more specific, an idea, there are people on our group have access to a boatload of data. We call them the Walmart of data. And then the idea was, is there a competition where that would involve monitoring individual water use And the question was posed specifically, is there a way that people can alter their behavior prior to a storm event to reduce their own personal water use to minimize or to mitigate the downstream impact of storm events? So, nature's going to dump a certain amount of water on us. Is there a way that, we can somehow prevent or mitigate some of that? And so there's a combination there between some of the data that were available from the various resources and some of the interests that folks had expressed. So anyone else that I don't know that I captured that quite properly, but anyone else can jump in.
I think you captured it perfectly well. And then finally, if group 3 wants to share what they discussed.
Sure. Marilyn has volunteered graciously to speak on behalf of our group.
Well, we kind of jumped right on to mini challenges, but we discussed in terms of some challenges, not having adequate staffing, to provide support in the community for helping residents solve water quality issues. We talked a little bit about the difficulty in tracking sources of fecals. And we mentioned, illicit discharge sources, tracking of those as some of our significant challenges. But my group was very gracious in flushing out one of the things that we were interested in doing, which was some kind of our primary public participation and outreach in Toledo is rain gardens and rain barrels, or they're trying to get residents to participate in their water quality. So we talked for most of our time about the idea of a rain garden app, rain barrel app that on one end would provide technical assistance that we don't have the staffing to provide in terms of taking them through the steps of preparation and installation, calculations especially, which is one of our biggest hurdles people don't feel comfortable with doing on their own. And then on the backhand, help them see both their individual contribution and their collective contribution of everybody who's working to improve the water quality. So we talked about some ideas of that, how you visualize impact, using imagery, for instance, and that kind of thing. So.
Well said.
Thank you all for sharing. This is, I love the ideas that I'm hearing. And I love that you've already jumped into mini challenges, because now we'll provide more of a framework around how mini challenges will need to be developed and how participants and the formatting, as I had shown y'all earlier on. But just some components of the mini challenge that to think about in the next session is the description of the water related problem that your group would like to see, which we did during the previous breakout. But now we'll also want to think about description of the solution type, what type of technology, an application, hardware, prototype that your group would like to see developed to solve this problem. And finally, which umbrella challenge does it connect to? Which for this mini challenge, which challenge is it connected to in the overall Erie Hack challenges? And then, so now we're going to go through our next breakout session, which will be at this point a continual discussion of the mini challenges, which is amazing. And we will talk a little bit more about the solutions we want to see and specifically in what challenge they are. So if Laura, you could give us another 10 minutes to discuss before we thank you everyone for such a great discussion. I'd love to once again go around and summarize from group to group what we came up with. If room 1 wants to go first, Max.
Sorry, I should have designated a report out person. to put someone on the spot here, but I can be on the spot. That's okay. We talked about a couple of different areas. We dove a little deeper into drinking water distribution, and particularly talking about, affordable and efficient lead line detection, but also replacement. Are there technical solutions for that? Other drinking water distribution issues were of interest: main breaks and lost or non-revenue water. And then another issue that was addressed on the utility side, or that we talked about, was the need for open and transparent communication between utilities and communities. And we talked a little bit about, are there ways that innovation or new technology can help to address this big challenge we have in the water industry of building trust and building, really building trust between low-income communities, communities of color, and the government, where they have a lot of, historical reasons to, have that distrust. We also talked a bit about emerging contaminants, microplastics, pharmaceuticals, and PFAS. And we're thinking about how could a mini challenge look at, sort of individual level behaviors that can help reduce plastics going into the waste stream, maybe with like a circular economy kind of framing. So those are some of the things that we talked about.
Okay, and then group 2, if anyone wants to jump in, Jim, Patrick, John.
I guess I will. I don't, we didn't really come out with a solution. I just stressed, as someone who's an entrepreneur and has built businesses and has coached entrepreneurs over the last 6 years. I think if we're going to have a conversation about what we want to do in this challenge, I think 90% of the conversation should be talking about the problems we're trying to solve, and only 10% should be about the solution. You don't often build something sustainable if you are solution leading and not problem leading. So, one of the challenges that group 2 is focused on, and I think it's a good one, is community engagement and awareness of the impact that every individual has on lake. And how the question really is, how do you change behaviors, right? So that's the problem we're trying to solve. If you change behaviors, then you could ultimately, hopefully, solve some of the other problems that are more lake specific related. So just wanted to mention that, any conversations had, from my own experience, I would encourage focusing on the problem and not the solution first.
And then group 3.
Yeah, Marilyn, I don't know if you wanted to carry out your role of our group spokesperson, or if maybe Maringu or Mike wanted to share a bit more about what we talked about this session. Maringu, I think you're muted.
We talk a little bit about access to waterways, and the discussion kind of went to the ways of people don't necessarily connect. People don't connect with water, or communities don't, or residents or families don't connect with water, so they are not necessarily engaged with addressing the problem, because they don't have a connection with the water. So one example that came up was fishing, which is one of the routes that people used to care and connect with water, but it's a very male-dominated field. And that leaves a whole population of residents that are not interacting with water, and therefore maybe not participating in a conversation about water. Yeah, that's somebody else from a group can add what I didn't mention.
Yeah, we talked about a couple of other challenges. We talked about use of affordable sensors to track our impact. Maybe, as we discussed earlier, through rainwater harvesting or other things. Also affordable sensors that could be used to help recreators like kayakers and other people using the water interpret flow data into or have some kind of an application that could use sensors to translate flow data into safety data. You know, when is it safe to go out? When is it safe to be around this water due to bacterial levels or whatever? We talked a little bit about the need for inexpensive ways to identify bacterial issues and also identify sources. We know that there's expensive DNA sourcing available, but we talked about, is there potentially some kind of a chemical footprint other than DNA that might be able to use to help people identify what the source of their fecal contamination is more easily and affordably. So those were some of the solutions we were discussing also.
Thank you all for sharing these solutions, and I want to make sure to leave like some time for a question or two, but just to start wrapping things up, a few reminders. This QR code leads to the registration form that I have sent, and the soft deadline is in about a week for maximum exposure as people start registering and start registering for Erie Hack. The hard deadline is October 15th, which is the team formation deadline. And that's also why that is the last deadline you can submit a mini challenge by. Some other considerations in addition to, you know, the problem, the required solution, as well as the challenge statement it falls under is, you know, the designated mentor as for this challenge, as well as like the level of support that your organization can provide, mentorship capabilities, sponsorships, etc. But yeah, so I know people have to head out, but I can stay for a few more minutes if anybody has questions. But thank you all for coming.
When you say when you say sponsorship, is that prizes or?
Yeah, well,
yes,
not just, it's in previous examples, we've had sponsor organizations that don't have prizes, but it's also like mentorship capability is also part of the sponsorship. So I guess the answer is not just prizes.
okay.
All right. It is 11. Felicia, if you want, I can make you the host if you want to stick around for a couple of minutes, if anybody does have any lingering questions for you.
Sure.
And
yes,
everyone else can feel free to carry on with your day. Thank you so much for your time and all of the great conversations.
Yes, thank y'all.
So I have a question. Mark, you're still on the call, I see. And I wondered whether, so this is not relevant to anyone else who's still on the call, but within our group, I really like this idea that group 2 came up with, despite the reservations that Patrick had about changing behavior.